got mail?
Hey everyone, it's great to be back with you once again because it's that time, so get ready to reminisce and relive the past here on the Nostalgia Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Shriver, aka the Nostalgia King, and I want to thank you for joining me on this journey down memory lane. Each episode, we explore different topics that transport you back in time, from high school memories, old technology, and past news events, to classic movies, vintage TV shows, and the retro video games we all know and love. So get your pizza rolls ready and crack open a nice cold can of Surge and join me as we take a dive into the past here on the Nostalgia Podcast. Hello everyone and welcome back. I hope you're having a great day and that you're ready to take a trip down memory lane. This is episode 6 of the Nostalgia Podcast, original release date of Wednesday, the 4th of September, 2024. We've got a super exciting topic lined up that I hope you're going to love today. If there are any Twisted Metal fans listening right now, I think you're going to really like our discussion. Today, we're going to dive into Twisted Metal 2 World Tour on the PlayStation 1. We'll explore the history of the game, talk about all the crazy characters and levels, and share some fun facts and trivia, as well as some of my own personal memories of the game. And if you aren't into Twisted Metal, or just really haven't paid much attention to it, well, I hope this episode will encourage you to dust off that old console and give it another go. But before we get into the conversation, I wanted to give a big shout out and thank you to everyone who's been going on to my Nostalgia King social media account, mainly over on TikTok, but I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you all for supporting the channel, liking, commenting, and sharing my post with your friends and family. I really appreciate it, and having that interaction with you all makes this a lot of fun and well worth the time. So if you haven't done so yet, please go ahead and give me a follow. Just search for the Nostalgia King and I should pop up. Also, for your convenience, the show is available on all major podcasting apps like Spotify, Apple Music, and also we release the show on YouTube. So whatever way you like to consume podcasts and other content like that, we've made it easy to find us. Just check the description of this show for all the links. All right, with all that down, let's get on with the show and dive into our main topic today, Twisted Metal 2 World Tour. All right, everybody, and welcome back. Today, again, like I said, we're going to be talking about Twisted Metal 2 World Tour, which was released on the PlayStation 1 originally. But before we get into that, we're going to take a little bit of time and discuss the game that came just before that, Twisted Metal 1. Don't want to talk about this one the entire episode, but I thought I would at least mention it because it does influence Twisted Metal 2, and I did actually start by playing the original Twisted Metal first. But the second one, I think, is far better and is definitely my favorite of the whole franchise. So it's a little brief history. Released on November 5th, 1995. So it was going to be one of those games that probably everybody wanted for Christmas back then. 1995, I would have been 12 years old. Actually 11, about to turn 12. My birthday's in December. So developed by Single Track and published by Sony Computer Entertainment. It says, this game introduced us to a thrilling new genre of vehicular combat. And really it did introduce us to that because I don't remember any really popular games back then that were in this genre, the vehicular combat type of game. Players were thrown into a demolition derby hosted by the enigmatic Calypso. Yes, I remember Calypso, who promised to grant the winner any wish they desired. The game featured a diverse roster of vehicles, each with unique attributes and special weapons, and each with a special character. You know, each one had its own like backstory and everything. and took place in various arenas around Los Angeles. That's right. So the original Twisted Metal game, it was like a demolition derby. Each car that you could pick from had different abilities, different special weapons, a different character with his or her own different story, and their reason for entering the contest. Contest was called Twisted Metal. It was run by this guy named Calypso, and like it said, he would grant the winner the wish that they would ask for at the end if you won. All right, the success of Twisted Metal was immediate thanks to its innovative gameplay and engaging multiplayer mode. I do remember playing split screen with my friends for many hours. It quickly became one of the best-selling games on the PlayStation, earning critical acclaim and a dedicated fan base. This success paved the way for the development of Twisted Metal 2, which was released the following year in 1996. The sequel expanded on the original with more characters, more levels, and improved graphics and gameplay mechanics. I would say all that is definitely true, which is why I love the second one the most. Twisted Metal 1 was great, had a lot of replayability, the split screen, the demolition style arena. They weren't some of the levels were big, some weren't. But in the second one, everything definitely got bigger. A lot more characters, and the graphics were definitely a lot better. And the handling, when they talk about gameplay mechanics, when I play number one now, the handling is really something to be desired. The controls are not the easiest thing, but in the second one, it's way better. It says, unlike its predecessor, which was set solely in Los Angeles, Twisted Metal 2 took the tournament global, featuring levels in iconic international locations. Hence the name World Tour. Yeah, so the first one was just in Los Angeles. Number 2, you're going around to different areas. I remember in the tournament mode, the first level is Los Angeles. So you do go back in the first level, but then after that, you're elsewhere. Continuing, it says the transition from original Twisted Metal to Twisted Metal 2 marked a significant evolution in the series, solidifying its place in gaming history. The dark humor, intense combat, and memorable characters of the original game set the stage for the even more ambitious and expansive sequel. Yeah, it talks about dark humor. When you're talking about the whole point of the game is to win your wish, and then Calypso is supposed to grant your wish. All of that is like bonkers, off the wall stuff. The character designs, the gore, but then it's humorous too. So it's like you can't take it too seriously. I know in the other games, Twisted Metal 3 and on, I think it did get a little bit more dark, but less of the dark humor and just more like grittiness, more gore, a little bit more serious tone, especially in Twisted Metal Black. But the dark humor was really there from the beginning in 1, and it was ramped up in number 2. So as we gear up to revisit the mayhem of Twisted Metal 2, let's remember the groundbreaking game that started it all. So that's a little bit of information and tribute to the original Twisted Metal, which got it all started. So Twisted Metal 2, also known as Twisted Metal World Tour in Europe and Twisted Metal EX in Japan, it is a vehicular combat video game as well. Again, developed by SingleTrack and published by Sony Computer Entertainment. The second game in the Twisted Metal series. It was originally released, like I said earlier, in 1996. It was released on both PlayStation and Windows, so you could play it on your PC as well. The Windows version didn't come out until 97, a year later. So yeah, at first it was just a PlayStation exclusive game. The Microsoft Windows versions features slightly cut down graphics compared to the PlayStation version, but doesn't require a 3D accelerator video card. I remember back then that was a big thing whenever you had bought a store off-the-shelf computer like a Compaq Presario or a Hewlett-Packard, something like that. You would oftentimes have to upgrade your computer by buying a video card separately and then like taking the tower apart, putting it in, doing all that stuff. I used to do that with my computer all the time, but I'm for sure not everybody knew how to do that or wanted to do that. So you would just be better off buying the PlayStation, which could play the game, right out of the pack. No problem. If you bought it for Windows, you might have to do some upgrading for some of the games now. But this one, it says you didn't have to do that for Twisted Metal 2. So that's why the graphics were not as good as the PlayStation version. It also features multiplayer mode over a modem, landline, or internet. Oh, wow. See, I didn't know that part. So if you got it on the PC, you could play against somebody online way back in 1997. That's crazy. I never knew that. 2 years after its release, Twisted Metal 2 was re-released as a PlayStation Greatest Hits game. So only 2 years after its release, it made Greatest Hits status. It was also released for download on PlayStation Network in North America in 2007 November. On July 18th, 2023, it was then made available for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. So that's really the reason that I guess I'm talking about this is I've seen a big revival in the Twisted Metal franchise. And a lot of videos have been going up about Twisted Metal 2. I see a lot of people posting gameplay and showing all the secrets and stuff. It's just been making its rounds again on the internet and stuff because it's back in the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. You can now buy it there and still play the game. I do believe they upgraded the graphics somewhat. Continuing gameplay and concept, Twisted Metal 2 is a demolition derby which permits the usage of ballistic projectiles. Players choose a vehicle in an arena or a series of arenas in their story mode to engage in battle with opposing drivers. A variety of weapons are obtained by pickups scattered throughout the stage. So just from what I remember, you could pick up the best thing was like the homing missiles, which would hit your target pretty much every time as long as they were in front of you. There was also the fire ones. They looked like the homing missiles, but they were yellow and they said fire on them. They also had some homing capabilities, but it wasn't as strong, so you had to be lined up with your enemy a little bit more with that one. There was also the power missiles. They were a missile that would just shoot straight from your car. They wouldn't home in on the enemy at all. So you had to be pretty lucky to get a hit with that one. But if you did, the power missile was like a really strong. The power missile caused a lot more damage than the homing or the fire. And then after that, you would have the ricochet. It's basically like bombs that are like circular. They would roll around the map. You would shoot them. They would bounce around until they hit something like another enemy or maybe even yourself. Many times I would be driving around a level. I would shoot off some ricochets. Then later on, they would hit me. Sometimes they would destroy me too, if they didn't run into an enemy before they got back to me. Then there was the napalm, which to me is one of the most useless weapons in the game. The napalm, it just shoots a big hail of fire from your roof, like 5 car lengths in front of you. It has no homing capabilities at all, and it almost never hit your target. What I would usually do is I would fire it, and it would land in front of me right where I was driving, so I would have to drive through the fire, and then your car would catch on fire and actually could destroy you. So napalm for me was always like a joke. The only time I found napalm really useful is when Mr. Slam, one of the characters we'll talk about in a minute, is he would grab onto your car and like slam your car into the ground. Well, so while he had you in his grip, you could fire a napalm and it would pretty much blow him up. I remember that very vividly. After the napalm, what other weapons were there? There was other pickups. You could pick up some turbo because your cars, they could go various speeds, but some would go faster than others. So in order to give yourself a little bit more boost, you can do your turbo, but you didn't have an unlimited turbo. So that's another thing you could pick up. You could pick up some more turbo in the area as well. The other one is the remote bomb. That was a pretty cool weapon. So you could plant a bomb and then you could just like wait for someone to get near it and then you could trigger it and it would explode. Or if they just run into it, it would explode then too. I remember placing the remote bomb at the top of the Eiffel Tower. So whenever someone would beam up, they would just immediately get blown up by the remote. And then that explosion would also cause the secret thing, which I'm sure everyone knew about this. It wasn't much of a secret, honestly, but that explosion could actually blow up the top portion of the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower's top portion would fall over. It would go over the river in that level and onto the rooftop. So that was a way to get onto the rooftops of that level. Otherwise, you just had to stay on like the street level. But blowing up the Eiffel Tower in Paris with the remote bomb, then you can like have the whole upper section and the upper roof section, which gives you more power-ups, more pickups, and there was some health up there too. And you can kind of pick off other characters from the roof. Sometimes the enemies would follow you up there. Sometimes they would just stay on the ground level. So, but yeah, if you were playing with like your friends or something, that was always something fun to do. Blowing up the Eiffel Tower, setting those remote bombs, and using those strategically like that. All right. The objective of the game is to be the last remaining player. Two-player duel mode makes a return from the first Twisted Metal, so you could still do the cooperative mode, and you could also do the versus against the teammates, against a friend with the split screen. There is no ending if the game is completed on cooperative. So if you want to do the actual endings and get like the cutscenes and know what each character was gonna wish to Calypso and see how that plays out, you had to do it in the tournament mode in the single player only. All right, Twisted Metal 2 plot. Here's where it gets crazy. In 2006, this is the plot of Twisted Metal 2, so it was in the future, because remember, this game came out in 96, so this would have been 10 years later, or 10 years in the future, and now it's way in our past, but actually, if you watch these cutscenes, some of it's kind of accurate. So in 2006, Los Angeles is in ruins, and its citizens left to struggle for survival after the conclusion of Twisted Metal. So this is a direct sequel, basically. So the consequences and the whole battle that took place in the first game, that has happened in the history of this game. So the whole city is like in ruins. A brutal contest held by Calypso exactly 1 year earlier on Christmas Eve. So yeah, I didn't know that either. Or maybe I did know, I just didn't remember that the battle in the first one, would that happen around Christmas Eve? Okay. Aboard his airship, running the ticker Calypso Rules the Earth, in the skies over the destroyed City of Angels, Calypso wonders where the next Twisted Metal will take place. 14 of the world's best drivers are already assembled to compete for whatever prize they desire. Ultimately, Calypso decides that the world itself shall serve as a battleground. In addition to the remains of Los Angeles, drivers will also battle in, so here are the other levels that you could go to. So like I said, first level is Los Angeles, then you go on to the other levels around the world. Moscow is the second one. Moscow's a really weird level because it's like pretty much the only level that doesn't look like what it's named after, the city of Moscow. It doesn't look like Moscow at all. It's basically just an arena, a really lame arena. It's very small. There's not much to say about the Moscow level. It's actually quite disappointing. If I was from Moscow, I'd be like, what the heck is this? The level after that is the Paris one, which for me is probably my favorite. Talked about that a second ago, how there is the Eiffel Tower. There's the Seine River that you can go into. There's Notre Dame Cathedral. You have the paintings of the Mona Lisa, a lot of Van Gogh, I think there's some Monet paintings that you could destroy. That was another really cool thing about these games. The levels were very interactive. They weren't just static levels that you drove around. You could actually change the levels. You could destroy the Eiffel Tower and bring half of it down so then you can access the roof. You could destroy or break into the Notre Dame Cathedral and destroy some of the paintings. There were cars that were parked on the street that you could destroy. And also, I remember there were these civilians that would be walking around, and pretty much every level has these. But I think the ones that are in Paris, they were actually wearing berets. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I'm imagining. And if you hit them, they like scream and blood goes everywhere, and then they fall to the ground or something. So I remember in the first game, the pedestrians that would walk around the levels, they would actually shoot at you. So you could just be driving around trying to collect weapons and things to stock up, and there'd be no enemies around, but you would have these pedestrians around that would shoot you, and if you had really low health, you could actually die from them. In the second game, however, the pedestrians, they could just die by getting hit. You can shoot them, whatever, but they can't shoot back at you. They're just kind of there to be funny. Again, that dark humor kind of stuff that I love this game for. After Paris is the first level where you have like a mid-game boss. It's the Amazonia level. This level to me is probably my least favorite after Moscow, but for a different reason. Moscow is just like a lame level, but it's like, okay, you play it. It's actually kind of easy to beat it. But Amazonia is super difficult for me. The level was in lava, and there'd be these islands that you would have to get to, but you'd have to go through the lava to get to the islands. Sometimes there would be health on the island, and you were like almost dead. In order to get there, you had to cross lava, and the lava would eat away at your vehicle. It was basically like being on fire. And sometimes you'd be going for the health, and you couldn't even make it there because the lava would get you. So you had to be careful. And then once you beat those enemies, then the first boss comes out, which was Minion, I believe. And you would have to fight Minion in that same level. So Amazonia was something I always dreaded. After Amazonia is New York City. New York City is a really cool level. You're on these rooftops. There's different platforms. There's different levels you can enter into some of the skyscrapers and buildings. You could shoot out glass and go into different levels. There's a pool you can go into. I remember one roof you can get on and you blow something up and then you can drop down through the roof and you would land in a pool. There's just a lot of cool hidden things in the New York City one. It's kind of spread out. The bad thing about that one is it had basically drop off cliffs. You could fall off the side of the building. And once that happened, you were dead. And Twisted Metal 2 is very unforgiving with giving you very few lives and no way to replenish them. So once you died, like you had 3 lives. Once you use those 3 lives, you had to start all the way back to the beginning. But of course, there were like cheat codes and stuff where if you're any good at like finding out those types of things, you wouldn't have to really start over from the beginning. You could just enter in the little code at the beginning and you could skip to that. But not everybody knew that, right? So it's not like today's games where you have constant lives that you can accumulate and build up more lives. There really wasn't a way to get more lives. You started with 3. Once those were done, you had to start over. So that was New York City. I remember you could blow up the Statue of Liberty, I believe, if you fired some missiles towards it. Eventually, it'll blow up. It's a really cool level. I think it took place at night, which added to the coolness of the level. It's kind of stuck out to me as being really neat. After New York City is the Antarctica level, which is another one that you could drop off the edge and die immediately. Basically, in Antarctica, you're playing on this giant glacier, and during the game, the glacier continues to like have big chunks of ice fall away from it. So you could be in one area of the glacier, and then suddenly you would hear this noise, boom, 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 and then it would start flashing, and it would do that for a few seconds. So that would give you a warning that you need to be heading over to a different side of this glacier before this ice shelf falls off. And if you were on it when it fell, you were dead. It would take you down into the water with you. So yeah, that was Antarctica. After Antarctica is an big open field. It's Holland. It's called the Field of Screams. And Holland was one of my favorite levels because it was basically just a big open field. So this is like the basic demolition derby. Like you have a big open field and cars were just going all over the place shooting each other. There's not too much to hide behind. There were a couple windmills, but you could blow those up, honestly. So most of the level is just one big open field. It has a lot of power-ups, a lot of health, but it has a lot of enemies to it as well. And they were getting, this is the second to last level. They were very hard. It was very hard to get through this level without losing one of your lives. So if you didn't have like at least 1 or 2 lives left, by the time you got to Holland, yeah, that's not too good. After Holland was Hong Kong, the final level. Oh, I love this level. It was really cool. It was kind of like Paris, where you're in the city streets and stuff, and you could do different things in the level. I remember there was a subway you can go into, and when you got into the subway, there was actually a subway car that you could get hit by, and it would blow your vehicle up. Sometimes I would go into the subway to hide from the enemies, just to get hit by the subway car and blow up. I died so many times in Hong Kong, I can't even tell you. There was also like a central portion you can go into where it would fire lightning out of this pagoda type structure in the middle. And yeah, Hong Kong's a pretty unique level. I would say it's one of my favorites. Then at the end of Hong Kong, if you did beat that, then you would have to fight the 2 bosses at the end. So the first boss is Darktooth, and Darktooth has a backstory where I think he was Sweet Tooth's dad, from what I remember. I'll read a little bit more about that in a minute, but that's what I remember. And then after you beat Darktooth, which is this big like garbage truck looking thing, then you would have to fight the flaming head, because it was like this big garbage truck, and it also had this flaming head on top of it, and it would basically just ram you and shoot these huge things at you. But if you beat the truck, then you would have to beat just the head. So there was like a time where you're like, oh, I beat it, and then suddenly, oh, you got to go and beat a different part of it again. So it's pretty crazy. It's a really hard game. Like I said, if you only get 3 lives, and if you lose all 3, you got to start all the way over. So it was a very unforgiving game, very difficult game, but very rewarding if you're able to get all the way through and still beat it. Yeah, so once you've beaten Darktooth and the Flaming Head in Hong Kong, then you would go to meet Calypso with whatever character you chose, and there would be a cutscene showing you, what your character wished and all the crazy antics and things that would happen once Calypso. He would never really grant the wish. It would always be like a double-edged sword. Like, yes, you won, and he's going to grant you a wish, but he wouldn't do it in the way you would think. And so now let's go through all the characters, talk a little bit about all of them, and a little bit more on some of the main characters. And I'll also talk to you about what were the wishes and how Calypso fulfilled the wish. All right. First up is Axel, who is kind of going to be like the mascot for this game. In the original Twisted Metal, Sweet Tooth was kind of like on the cover art, and he was like the main mascot of this franchise. Axel was on the cover art for this Twisted Metal 2. So he was kind of meant to be like the star character. So his reason for entering the contest was to free himself from these giant wheels that he attached himself to. So there's this guy, if you look at any images online, the cover art for the CD case for this game is him. It's just a guy who's trapped in this contraption of just basically 2 wheels that can fire rockets and machine guns. And his arms are in the wheels, and his legs are kind of like attached to the platform that connects the wheels. So basically, he's just a guy with wheels as arms. And the wheels are huge, like big monster truck size wheels. So his wish was to be free from his contraption. And I don't remember the whole backstory, if he put himself in there or if it was an accident or someone did it to him. I don't remember. But he wanted to be out of the contraption. His special weapon, by the way, was this big like pulse or blast that was pretty powerful. You didn't want to get close to Axel. A lot of the enemies, their special weapon would be like a ranged weapon, would be something that they could shoot and it would come out and hit you from a distance. But Axel really couldn't do much damage unless he was really close to you. But when he was close, that blast would do a lot of damage. All right, here's the ending for Axel. It says, Axel stood before Calypso and asked him for one prize he wanted more than anything: the strength to face his father, who had bound him in this hellish contraption, so that's the wheels, for over 30 years. Axel is present, and he opens the barn doors to reveal his father. Axel's father says, "Why have you come back? I thought I'd gotten rid of you." Axel says, "Father, please release me." His father says, "You were always too slow, too damn stupid. And you still are. It's going to take 10 more years on the wheels to set you right. You need to be taught a lesson." Axel comes back with, "No, father, I've learned my lesson. Let me show you what I've learned." Axel screams in agony as he pulls his arms from the contraption. Blood drips from his stumps while circuitry hangs idly. Axel says, "I'm a free man, and you are no longer my father." Calypso says, "Axel disappeared into the Kansas field. To this day, he has yet to be seen. I am Calypso, and I thank you for playing Twisted Metal." Okay, so that's kind of one where Axel kind of got what he wished for, except his arms were all screwed up. Actually, he didn't have arms after that, so kind of a painful way to end that one. The second character it lists here is Grasshopper, whose name is Krista Sparks. This character is super annoying. When you're playing against her, and she does her special weapon, and one thing about this is like the enemy, they get unlimited weapons, seems like. So if they fire their special, it wasn't like out until they regenerated it. They could do their special and then do it again and again. And hers was super annoying. She would do this. She would say like, "Yeehaw, yeehaw," like every time. It was so annoying. And she would fly in the air and then smash with these turbojets like down into you. It actually probably was a pretty good special if you played as her, because it probably did a good deal of damage smashing her car into you, even though it wasn't a very big car. But just the fact that she would yell that every time, it was super annoying, and she would do it over and over if you got close to her. That's another one where that special really didn't work unless you were close to her, because she would have to lock on to you. She would jump in the air, say yeehaw, and then slam down into you. And here's how Grasshopper's story ends. It says, Grasshopper, a Twisted Metal contestant and Calypso's daughter, reveals herself to be a cyborg created by the LAPD to infiltrate Calypso's operation. Wow, okay. She sacrifices herself to destroy Calypso and end the Twisted Metal contest. That's crazy that the LAPD is in on this. The ending suggests that Calypso's reign of terror might finally be coming to an end thanks to the actions of his own daughter. So in this one, it's almost like the best ending because the plan from the LAPD actually works. The infiltration unit basically destroys him and ends the contest. That's pretty cool. All right, let's go on to the next character, which is Roadkill, real name Marcus Kane. His special weapon was basically like a boomerang homing thing that it could fire. It wasn't very powerful. It was basically kind of like the power missile, but the homing version of that. His biography says, I know the truth, you freak. You sit back in your living room with your little video game console and play. But I know what's happening. I can see you. They think I'm crazy, but you'll find out I'm the only one who's sane. All right, his ending goes like this. The driver of Roadkill, a man named Marcus Kane, stepped out of his car and came face to face with Calypso, the creator of Twisted Metal. He says, they all call me crazy. They all say I'm insane, but I'm not. I know this isn't real. None of it is. His wish was, the reason he entered the contest is to expose Calypso in the reality of Twisted Metal universe. He believes the contest is a simulation or a dream and wants to break free from it. His wish at the end of the game is granted by Calypso in the following way. Calypso, the creator of Twisted Metal, grants Marcus Kane's wish to escape the simulated reality. However, there's a twist, as there always is. Marcus's real life is revealed to be a coma induced by a severe car accident. The other contestants, who are also in comas, become familiar to him, suggesting that the Twisted Metal universe is a shared dream or hallucination brought on by the traumatic experience. In essence, Calypso fulfills Marcus's wish by waking him up from the dream, but the reality he returns to is a harsh one. The world of Twisted Metal, while dangerous and chaotic, may have been a more comforting escape compared to the physical pain and uncertainty of his real-life situation. All right, next up is the character Twister, who's basically just like a race car. Her special weapon, and I say her because her name was Amanda Watts. Her special weapon was another one that she had to get close to you. Is basically like her car turned into a tornado, hence the name Twister. She would start spinning, it would catch your vehicle, and you would just start spinning around with her. It was really hard to break away from that. That's another one of those really annoying ones, because once she grabbed onto you, you just had to ride it out. And if she kept doing the special over and over again, if you didn't like use your turbo to jet away, right, she would catch it and it would just go on. And it did a lot of damage. On here, it's rated as a 4 out of 5 as far as special weapon power. Here's her ending. Amanda Watts, or Twister, wishes for the ability to drive at the speed of light. Calypso grants her wish, and she becomes the world's first time traveler. However, her journey is short-lived. While traveling through time, she runs out of fuel and is ultimately crushed by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Her fossilized helmet, so I guess she was going back in time, her fossilized helmet becomes a historical mystery in the future, serving as a reminder of her obsession with pushing boundaries and the potential consequences of such desires. The next character is Mr. Slam, whose real name is Simon Whittlebone. And Mr. Slam is basically just a bulldozer, and his special weapon is on the front of his bulldozer is like this mouth or these jaws with these teeth, and he can clamp onto your vehicle and lift you up and down, slamming you into the ground, doing a lot of damage. And it was super hard to get away from his grip. Like I said earlier, the napalm, once he grabs onto you, if you fire it, it'll basically explode right on him. Sometimes it'll actually hurt you as well. So you got to kind of be careful. But that was a really good one as well. Another one that's not a ranged weapon, another one he had to get close up to you in order to work. Here's how his story resolved. Simon Whittlebone, a disgruntled architect, wins the Twisted Metal contest. He wishes for Calypso's help to build a tower that reaches the heavens. Calypso grants his wish, and Whittlebone constructs a towering skyscraper. However, here we go, his newfound success leads to arrogance and delusions of grandeur. He believes himself to be a god and ultimately falls to his death from the top of his tower. His crash site serves as a warning to future Twisted Metal contestants about the dangers of unchecked ambition and pride. Next up is the character of Shadow, aka Mortimer. Now, Mortimer or Shadow is the hearse, and it fires a ranged weapon. It's kind of a ghost. It fires, and all you see is like this shadow that goes on the ground towards you. It's basically like the power missile, but it doesn't look like a missile. It just looks like a shadow on the ground flying towards you. It doesn't home in on you. It's another one that's hard to actually land. But if it does, it's pretty powerful. It's a 4 out of 5 on the special weapon power scale. Here's how the ending goes for Shadow. Mortimer, a Twisted Metal contestant, reveals himself to be a vengeful spirit seeking retribution for Calypso. He brings with him the souls of innocent victims who died during the previous contest. These souls trap Calypso to punish him for his creation. The ending suggests that Calypso's fate is uncertain, with some believing he's been dropped in New York City and others thinking he's been carried by the spirits to hell. The final scene with Calypso on the wings of a plane implies that his torment is ongoing, that he remains a force to be reckoned with. So they're torturing him, but he escapes, kind of. That's kind of a lame ending, honestly. Next up is Hammerhead. Now, Hammerhead is actually two characters inside one vehicle. And Hammerhead is basically a monster truck. And inside is Mike and Stu. The special weapon, not very powerful. It's a 3 out of 5. He just rams you like a monster truck would, and it causes a bunch of damage. It's a pretty big vehicle, so he's just basically smashing into you, and that's the special weapon. It's actually kind of lame as well, as far as that goes. And here's how his ending went. Hammerhead, driven by Mike and Stu, win the contest. They wish for the ability to fly. Calypso grants their wish, but the spell backfires. Instead of flying, Mike and Stu fall to their deaths from the rooftop. So I guess they flew, but they couldn't land. The ending serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed and the potential consequences of unchecked desires, as most of these do. All right, next up is Outlaw 2. And Outlaw 2 is driven by Captain Jamie Roberts. Outlaw was a character in Twisted Metal 1. And I think the driver of that vehicle was a male. And Outlaw is basically a cop car. So in Twisted Metal 2, it's now Outlaw 2 driven by a female. It's Captain Jamie Roberts. And the special weapon on Outlaw 2 is actually pretty good. I actually am I'm a fan of that one. It's lightning that shoots out, or electricity that shoots out from the roof of the vehicle. If you're anywhere near her, it'll latch onto you kind of like a taser, and it spins you around, it zaps you, damages you, and kind of throws you off course a little bit. And yeah, that's a pretty good one. I actually like playing as Outlaw. And here's how her ending went. Outlaw 2 enters Twisted Metal to rescue her brother, who is trapped in space in a previous contest. Calypso grants her wish, but it turns out to be a trick. Shocker. Both siblings find themselves stranded in space. However, Outlaw 2 has prepared for this eventuality and uses modified rocket boosters to escape, vowing to return to Earth and seek revenge on Calypso. So he tried to somehow trap her in space with her brother, so I guess she got out to him, but she couldn't return. But she was prepared. She had those rocket boosters, and she's coming back. So to be continued on that one. The next character is Warthog. Now, Warthog is driven by Captain Rogers, who basically looks like this really old guy, basically almost a skeleton with just skin draped over a skeleton, all saggy, old looking, almost like a zombie. He's probably one of my favorite characters to play as. He is very slow, but like I said, you can get turbo. If you get enough turbo, you can go fast with Warthog. if you have enough turbo. His special weapon is pretty cool. It's like 3 homing missiles, and they do a lot of damage. 4 out of 5 on the power scale for special weapon. He has a good amount of armor though, as well, but his speed is the bad part. So here's how the ending went with Warthog. Captain Rogers, a veteran Twisted Metal contestant, wishes to be young again. Calypso grants his wish, but the transformation is incomplete. He retains his head on a newer, younger body. The ending suggests that the wish may have been a curse in disguise, leaving Rogers in an uncanny and potentially uncomfortable state. So he gets a new body. He's all ripped and stuff and young, but he's got this disgusting old guy, zombie-looking face still. So you got to be careful with how you word what you want with Calypso. He said he wanted a younger body, and he did, but he didn't specify the head too. So there's always going to be a loophole with Calypso. Our next contestant is Mr. Grimm. Mr. Grimm is basically a skeleton on a motorcycle. He has a really powerful special weapon. It's rated 5 out of 5. It's like this skull that shoots from his... It's a skull that shoots from his motorcycle, and it's really powerful. It's almost like getting hit with like 5 power missiles. And if he can hit you with a couple specials at once, he could pretty much kill someone in one volley. The thing is, his armor is horrible. He gets a 1 out of 5 on armor. You can almost kill him in one hit, honestly. If you ram him while using turbo and firing like 1 missile at him, he'll blow up. His speed is also one of his strong points. It's a 4 out of 5, one of the faster vehicles. So even though he can get blown up easily, you can stay ahead of most of the enemies and get away pretty quickly. And you can just do those hit and run moves with his special weapon and just, try to stay away from everybody. All right. So here's how Mr. Grimm's ending went. Mr. Grimm is addicted to souls. He wins the contest and demands that Calypso accelerate the rate of death on Earth so that he can consume more souls. Calypso fulfills this wish, causing a global war that decimates humanity. All for Mr. Grimm. Okay, that's pretty selfish. Mr. Grimm is satisfied for a time, but eventually becomes hungry again. Nothing lasts forever, right? Highlighting the insatiable nature of his addiction. The ending portrays a bleak future where humanity is nearly wiped out due to Mr. Grimm, but he's craving souls again and basically in withdrawal. The next character is Thumper, whose name is Bruce. And Thumper was basically like this big Cadillac-looking car. It was pink, and its special weapon was this big jet of flames that would shoot out the front. And it's very powerful. 4 out of 5 on the special weapon power scale. So if Thumper gets close to you and lets off that special weapon, you're pretty much toast. Here's how his story ended. Thumper wishes to rule the world. Calypso grants his wish, but the world has already been destroyed in the contest. Thumper becomes the king of a desolate wasteland, alone and powerless. The ending serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the emptiness of power without purpose. Next up is Spectre, whose name is Ken. Spectre was kind of like a sports car, and it would shoot out this homing missile that could go through walls. So Spectre, so that kind of like a ghost, and the special weapon could be fired through walls. It gets a 4 out of 5 on the special weapon power scale. It's kind of like a power missile, but homing, and it can go through walls. So you could do a lot of good damage strategically with Spectre. You can hide behind walls and stuff and just keep firing at your enemies and picking them off like that. Here's how Spectre's wish turned bad for him. Spectre wishes to become famous. Calypso grants his wish by transforming his face into a gigantic sky-filling image above New York City. Spectre's dream of fame becomes a reality, but the consequences are unexpected and potentially terrifying for the people of the city. Yeah, he takes his face and stretches it over the entire city. So basically that would kill you, right? The ending suggests that sometimes wishes can come true in ways that are far from desirable. So that was another one that I think is kind of lame. Yeah, he wanted to be just famous, okay? And so he just makes his face stretch so in the sky so everyone that looks up can see his face. Big deal. All right, after that is Sweet Tooth. And Sweet Tooth was an unlockable character. He doesn't start out being playable, but you can enter a code and then you can play a Sweet Tooth, which was, like I said, like the mascot and like the main character of the first game. So it's kind of weird that they have him kind of hidden away here in the second game, but I guess it makes him a little bit more important if you have to do something special to get to him. And Sweet Tooth, if you didn't know, the name is Needles Kane. He drives like a ice cream truck looking thing, and he's a clown mask with fiery hair, kind of. His special weapon are these homing missiles that, when they hit you, it makes your vehicle lose balance and kind of flip, and it's really hard to control your vehicle for a while. So if he hits you with several of those, you can't do anything. It's like you're totally out of control, and you just got to wait until he stops firing. Maybe you can use your turbo to get out of it, but basically, that's another one that Sweet Tooth is really annoying character if he's using a lot of specials on you, because it's really hard to get your vehicle under control when he's firing at you. It doesn't do as much damage. It's a 3 out of 5 on the damage scale, but the fact that you can't control your vehicle for such a long period of time when with each of those hits, that he can just continue to fire at you and you're pretty much helpless. All right, here's how Sweet Tooth's story ends in Twisted Metal 2. All right, it says Sweet Tooth wishes to live a peaceful life. This is strange, really strange. As a bug in a garden. Okay. Calypso grants his wish, and Sweet Tooth transforms into a ladybug. However, his desire for human companionship and violence remains, hinting at the possibility of his eventual return to the world of Twisted Metal. The ending suggests that even in a seemingly idyllic setting, Sweet Tooth's madness is not easily contained. Wow, I think that one's another one that's kind of disappointing to a lot of people because Sweet Tooth is such an iconic character. And the fact that you had to unlock him in order to play, you'd think it would be like one of the best endings. But he just turns into a bug, and then he's like, oh, darn, I didn't want to be a bug, actually, because now I miss being crazy with people. So kind of disappointing on that front. And let's go on to the next one, which is Minion. Minion is that boss, that mid-game boss in the Amazonia level. And he's one that you can also unlock to play with. And his special weapon is actually really cool. It's like Warthog, where I think it fires at least three homing missiles along with like a freeze and maybe something else. Maybe there's some fire to it or something. But it's a 5 out of 5 on the special weapon power scale. He's really one of the best characters to play as. He's got 5 out of 5 armor, and his speed is 4 out of 5. So he's kind of like a souped up Warthog, whereas Warthog is a good special weapon, good armor, but has bad handling and bad speed, whereas Minion has a good special weapon along with good armor, speed, and handling. It's like all great on all levels. So here's how his ending goes. Minion confronts Calypso, seeking revenge for stealing his powers. Minion drags Calypso down into the depths of hell, where Calypso is seemingly trapped. The ending suggests that Calypso's reign of terror may finally be over, but his fate remains uncertain. All right, so that's another one that was similar to one before. Just kind of gets taken out of the game, and then that would be the end of Twisted Metal, but it says it's remained like open-ended if he comes back or not. There's some backstory, like it says he stole his powers. I gotta look into that more, but so it's basically Minion getting revenge on Calypso and sending him back to hell. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode about Twisted Metal 2 World Tour. We went through all the characters, all the levels, some of my memories. And if you want to play the game, of course, you can always dust off your PlayStation 1, PlayStation 4, and 5. You can get it on that as well. As I mentioned earlier, there's a sort of a updated version on the PlayStation Store that you can go ahead and play. And you can also play it on your computer through those emulation software, things like that. You can use... I use DuckStation and just download the ROMs from different sites and things like that. So it's really easy to play the game these days if you want to get back into it. Also, I do suggest checking out the Peacock series that they did last year called Twisted Metal with Anthony Mackie, I believe. And it features Sweet Tooth a lot in it. So I actually really enjoyed the show, and I'm looking forward to season 2. So I hope you guys check that out. So what do you guys think about Twisted Metal 2, the rest of the franchise, the show that's out on Peacock? Let me know your thoughts. If you would, jump down to the comment section and let me know your memories about this and what you think. What are the best parts of this game? Does it still hold up? What's your favorite character? What was your favorite ending? What endings didn't you like? Was there something about the game I missed? What was your favorite level? Anything and everything you guys want to talk about, go ahead and jump into the comment section for this podcast and let me know your thoughts. Okay, everyone, that is going to do it for us this week. I want to really thank you all for joining me yet again for another journey down memory lane. I hope you enjoyed reminiscing about Twisted Metal and talking about all the awesome aspects that made this game so iconic and fun to play. And I want to know what you think. Join the conversation online with me. What did you think of today's topic? What topics should I cover in the future? Well, let me know your thoughts. Just head over to one of our social media pages. You can find us by simply searching The Nostalgia King or clicking on the links listed in the description of this episode. So make sure you give us a follow. I'm always posting a lot of 80s and 90s themed content that I think many of you will really enjoy. Okay, everyone, I hope you have a great week. Thanks so much again for your support and see you next time.